All right, Warwick, are you ready? Hello, listeners. Thank you for being here.
G'day, listeners. Nicole, I am never ready for what is about to happen.
My friend won't stop making bird puns.
Why not?
I'm not really sure, but two can play that game.
Oh, boom, boom.
We need sound effects.
Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nick unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
Okay, listeners, so here we are with the real part of the episode. My apologies for the introductions of late.
Come on.
I have now found myself on the lookout for decent jokes so I can somehow compete with Coxie's brilliance at the start of our episodes.
Oh, dear.
But instead of finding a joke, Coxie, I actually ended up getting a job cleaning leaves off roofs. Yeah, I'm raking it in.
I'm going to keep my laugh inside because that was shocking.
Now, listeners, we do have a guest on today's episode who is here for more than just a laugh. We managed to, I guess we kind of tripped over this guy. He wasn't literally lying in the gutter. Far from it, actually. But today's guest is here just because he wants to give back and I guess share some lessons, some insights and whatever he can just to help you, our listener, to be a better joke teller, among other things. So I'm just going to welcome Nicholas Dogulin to the show. Nicholas, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for giving me those two jokes that I've added to my arsenal. They're going to go down. They're going to go down really well next time I'm at the pub.
Can't beat a mum joke. I think it's an underrated area that we should all be flexing in.
Yeah, no, I love it.
A bit of a mum joke, folks.
Always be flexing. My CrossFit coach always had that mantra. He was like, always be flexing.
And you
Love
do.
it.
Over there.
You do.
Yeah,
At least I'm wearing pants.
Ticket to the gun show.
Exactly. So, Nicholas, before we lose our listeners' attention after listening to two bad jokes, can you please tell them a little bit about who you are?
Sure.
I guess why you're here, and then we can just rip into some awesome conversation.
Yeah, cool. So, Nicholas Dogulin, been running my digital agency for 10 years now. So we obviously, as I told you last time, we niche in the dental space. But to me, marketing, pretty much 80% of it's always the same, and then 20% of it is really where you get into the nitty gritty of the audience and into the marketing. Definitely had a million and one mistakes, which have turned into lessons, and I kind of enjoy talking to either new business owners or ones in the same place or ahead of me, and just kind of share war stories and see how we can improve ourselves in business. You can always do it yourself, or you stand on the shoulder of giants and let them do the hard yards for you, and you just learn from that. So, don't obviously expect anything from those chats. I just love connecting people or sharing my insights, and if someone can take something away from that and implement it into their own and have a smile on their face, then I'm a happy chappy.
Cool, mate.
I remember when we spoke to you the first time, Nick, and one of the questions I often ask people that we meet is what their parents did, because I find that there's a particular kind of person, they're very engaging. That's you, Tick. You might like to write a list for your wife so you can remind her, as per the conversation earlier today.
Nicholas's list of awesomeness.
Yeah, well, it's on the fridge, but she doesn't ever pay attention to it.
That's what I'm doing wrong. I've got to put one on the list. On the fridge. You're really warm. You're very easy to talk to. You're very engaging. You're extraordinarily generous with your knowledge and your sharing of your knowledge. And to me, my question always off the back, I guess as a mum of young adults, is always, okay, well, who are your parents? Because they've created a really lovely person. And so that led to one of the most fascinating conversations. And it was an answer I didn't expect, because quite frequently when we meet people like you, their parents are business owners or quite often tradies. Obviously, we talk to tradies a lot. But I would love you to share with our listeners a little bit about your background before you were grown. Your childhood stories that we spoke about when we met were fascinating to me. Can you give us a bit of
Yeah,
an
sure.
insight to your parents and your upbringing, because it was very unique?
Yeah, so I'm South African born, and my parents have Italian background, so I've got a very strong Italian culture on both sides. It was actually my first language, and mum had to come to school with me to teach me English, which is always something interesting in South Africa. And my dad is a still is to this day, even though we're trying to get him to retire, but he just won't. And he's a criminal lawyer. So in South Africa, he was lined up to be a judge. And then he said that the day he needed a gun to protect his family was the day we leave the country. My mum was a flavor chemist, so she used to make some awesome flavors up for like chips and drinks and stuff. So we were always well fed. I'm surprised I wasn't obese when I was younger. But you didn't have social media or TV or anything, which kind of I use for my trade now. But we would climb trees and run around like hooligans. So that was fine. So yeah, so that day came and we left the country, and I remember it clear as day. We arrived. So we were in Sydney, and we arrived here, and we currently live in Drummoyne, but we moved to Drummoyne at the time. And we were in our little hotel room, and we turned on the news, and I think it was Channel 9 News at the time that came on. And I remember there was a shooting somewhere, and it was a single shooting. And I turned to my parents and I said, "My God, this is paradise. There's just a single shooting."
Oh, no.
Unless there's like, massive hold up with AK-47s or anything like that, like it doesn't make the news. So that was kind of my upbringing. Like in South Africa, we were well off, but like I said to anyone, if you're well off in South Africa, it's like living in fool's paradise, because you're basically looking over your shoulder, and you can't do anything. Like we were here, and you leave your bike out on the street. I'm like, that doesn't happen in South Africa. Or when I was at school, sometimes parents in South Africa, if their kid was misbehaving at home, they'd call the principal and say, "Look, can you just give him a few canes when he gets there the next day, and just put him into line?" And then I got here in Australia, and people were telling off the teacher. I'm like, what is this place? This is, it's crazy. So yeah, I kind of adapted from there. So I've always had a pretty strong mindset ever since I was a kid, seeing things that you really shouldn't see as a kid. Like you could live in a mansion and then you look at, one of your walls and there's someone in a, sort of in a tin shack living, trying to siphon your water to live. It's ridiculous, what you see. So kind of have that. And my mindset's always been, my dream really, and kind of spans into my mindset, is somewhere in the world, there's a kid in a gutter who's probably the cure to cancer or like, and no one is giving him the opportunity, or he doesn't have food or shelter or clothes on his back. And I'm like, that has to change. There's no way that can happen. So my dream is to sort of make a lot of money and give away about 80 to 90% of my wealth, so that kid somewhere has that opportunity, whether it's through my direct wealth or investing, into someone that can do that. So yeah, it's crazy. And hopefully I, bring those values down into my kids. I've got a son and a daughter, and my wife is actually she was a social worker. So she worked at Docs and Facts. So it's almost somewhat similar from what she's seen and has to endure. So, it's a really interesting upbringing, and kind of didn't actually lead me into what I'm doing now, but it's, I can bring a lot of that stuff into what I'm doing, and definitely makes for some good conversations, that's for sure. And a lot of people say and my dad now, he runs the Aboriginal Legal Service here in Australia. And I said, look, how can a South African be running an Aboriginal legal service defending Aboriginals? I'm like, I always knew Australians were the biggest racists.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There's a certain level of irony in it, I guess.
Yeah.
Nicholas, how old were you when you came to Australia?
I was 12. And I'm now 37. And my wife's biggest request is for me to get my citizenship. And I feel that I'm Australian. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me otherwise. But most Australian thing, I don't want to go for it in case I fail. So,
So you do have a fear of failure. That's good to know.
Yeah, a little bit.
What would be the question that would scare you the most about the citizenship test?
Oh, mate, probably something with politics. I mean, what I know about politics, I can write on the back of a stamp with room to spare. Like I don't know anything
So
about
you're
it.
like
So
every other Australian then?
Yeah, you fit right
probably
in.
Yeah.
see, why do I need the piece of paper? I'm already
Yeah.
Australian.
So you to say you have a healthy dose of perspective in your adult life now is the understatement of the century. How has that though impacted or influenced, I guess, your behaviors or your attitudes through business and business dealings and I guess how you've approached marketing even and making money and that side of things?
Yeah, so there's kind of interestingly, it's like what stems to mind is sort of that imposter syndrome. And when I look at that, it's like, okay, why would people listen to me, or why would people want to work with me? And I look at it that way, and it kind of stems back, and I'm going, okay, well, you know, they come to me for a reason, or they don't know marketing to that degree. So I'm always going to be more of an expert. And really, you only need to know one thing more than another person, and you become an expert in their eyes.
Mm.
And it's sort of the same thing. And then I realized, well, one of my goals in the business is to be the dumbest in the business, and I only had to hire one person for that to happen. So it wasn't that hard. And but now, we've got a team of what I think it's last count, I think we had about 20, 21 people. And they are way smarter than I'm ever going to be. And I then tell my clients, look, if you want to work with us, you can go through me. Sure, I can answer all your questions, but I can assure you that I won't do it anywhere near as good as my team will. So relying on the team has kind of really helped me get to where we are now. And my conversations now stem to, okay, how do I utilize the business, and how do we work with our clients who effectively become partners with us to help me grow that dream and that vision to be able to help, that person in the gutter, or the underprivileged. So kind of really helps and gives me that perspective. And I wake up in life going, there are people so much worse than we are now. And when I'm sitting there complaining, it's like, well, just have a look at those people and get off your ass and do the work so that you can help them almost have the same outlook.
I love it. I think there's a lot of the country, well, the world, that still doesn't have the opportunity that many of us are fortunate to have, and taking a moment to reflect on that frequently creates better results for all of us, because it does change our perspective. And I think particularly in the last couple of years, we have seen a lot of the why me, or this is so hard, or everything's stuffed, or it's everybody else.
Oop, we've lost
Oop.
Coxie for a change. Normally it's me that disappears. And I can't even
That's
continue a
good.
question because none of this is scripted, listeners. So,
Yeah.
I'll jump in while Coxie disappears into the Ethernet somewhere.
Mm.
That perspective, I guess we're on a bit of a theme there, Nicholas. I mean, you seem really driven by other people and other people's welfare rather than your own profit and loss or balance sheet. Do you still have a focus on business performance? I mean, do you set targets? Do you do that sort of stuff? Or is it just literally, I'm doing
Yeah.
this for the kid in the gutter?
Well, I mean, personally, I think it goes hand in hand. So, I mean, if we don't have the business performance, there's no way we can help that kid. But my accountant and my bookkeeper kind of hate me at times, because we'll have clients who are struggling in their business, and obviously with the recent pandemic, it's made things worse.
Yeah.
But I know what we can do for them through our marketing, and I just tell them, I say, guys, don't worry about next month's invoice, or you know what, we're going to add that service on for you for the next 3 months, get you the results. You don't have to back pay it, and we start from then. And mate, I'm not lying when I say this. I've had in the last 2 months, we've had two clients literally tear up on Zoom when I have that call with them, and they say, Nick, no one's ever said that, or marketing agencies have never done that. And that's why we also month to month. We're changing that slightly now, but yeah, I'm just like, hey, we're here to help. I have a duty of care both to my clients, but also to my team. And I realized this, probably about 3-4 years ago, that because we technically B2B, because we work with dentists, and I suppose you could look at it this way, in that there's myself and there's my team. So I have to provide for my team, but then there's also the dentist and the dentist team and the dentist clients who happen to be the patients. And it's kind of all stems back to me. So I'm like, wow, how, if we don't perform in business or don't do the right things, then it filters down to so many people. So it really brings perspective into it for me there. But someone told me, I can't remember who it was, but they said, good business is good business. So, it's Sydney and Australia, it's a small place, right? And if you do bad business, the word gets out. And I've built my entire business off reputation alone. We don't do our own lead gen, and we never will, because I would rather build it through referrals. And our mission in our business is totally unrelated to dental or anything. It's one referral from every customer. And if you do that, you literally double your business every year. So, I ask, so during the week, I have what I call thinking time. So I get it from the book, The Road Less Stupid, which I highly recommend. But part of that, they talk about thinking time. And one of the questions that I sit and I ask myself on a weekly basis, am I allowed to, not that I often do, but am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're sitting there, ask the question, I go, if another competitor had to approach my client and say, would you leave Dental Rank to come work with us? What do I have to do in my business for that customer to turn around and say, absolutely fucking no way. Like, we sticking with Dental Rank. So what do I have to do? And that opens up a multitude of other questions, which is great because then it gives me more thinking time. So I spend about 2 hours on a Friday just thinking and writing. And then the following week, probably think about one of the questions that arose from that. But with that in mind, I then bring it back to my management team, say, guys, this is what I thought of. This is how we need to implement, go and do. And that's kind of worked really well. So it's kind of, I'm really a visionary type now. If someone tells me to do a task, I will freak out and come up with any excuse under the sun to not do it. But if you tell me to come up with some audacious plan and idea, like I'm all for it. So that's worked out really well, and that thinking time's helped me. And we've seen business growth. When I'm thinking, business grows. When I'm doing, nothing happens. So yeah.
It's a great distinction, mate. And I suppose in our previous chat with you and just listening to the way you speak about business and what you do, I feel like you're one of those people who has really recognized your strengths, to use the real simple language, and stayed away from the things that you suck at and found other people that can do those things.
That's it, mate.
Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, you on the money. So I realized what I'm really good at is sales. I love sales. People say, oh, I can't be a salesman. I couldn't be in front of someone. I love it. I could do it day in, day out. And it's not because it's sales, like secondhand car salesman, even though I'd probably be good at it. But, you would, it's just talking to people and working out what their problems are and coming up with a solution. It's the simplest thing in the world. Asking questions. My wife tells me I talk way too much. So I've started listening a lot lately. And it's really helped, because then you start finding out, what do people really need? Rather than saying, here's my product, here's my service, and ram it down their throat, it's kind of saying, okay, what exactly is it that you need? And then just keep asking, and eventually you find a solution, which is super simple. And then I just hand that off to, my project management team, or now my sales assistant, who hands it to the project management team. And then I get back to the drawing board in terms of how do we make our service offering better or our messaging better, and then get to check in with clients, every quarter or something, as opposed to, I'll go and have that followed up, and then I don't do it because I come up with an excuse not to, and they say, oh, you haven't done that yet, and it makes you look bad. So to me, I think that can't also, the looking bad and trying to please people and everything sort of came from my dancing days. So I know you probably don't have a lot of dancers on your podcast. I can put my money on that one, but
not yet. But we're hoping you can hook us up with a few, mate.
Yeah. So I'm an ex-Latin ballroom dancer, and it was all about the way you looked and perceptions and what people thought of you. And it was probably the worst thing for anyone's ego, to be perfectly honest. But that kind of drilled in repetition and, consistency and everything in my mind. And I kind of brought that into my business world. So every day, wake up, sales calls, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., talk to this person, organize a lunch. So every week I have to have lunch with at least one partner and one potential, contact. And that happened every week, the last 10 years. It happens every single week. And it just drilled it into me, which was crazy. So that was something that I really took from that moment. So it kind of really helped.
Nicholas, we are joined by Coxie, listeners. She has found her way back to the bicycle to get the electricity happening again.
Crazy, isn't it?
So speaking of technology, Nicholas, you talked about word of mouth referrals earlier. I wanted to just jump back on that thread. It's an area that our listeners, I would say most of the tradies in business that we talk to, the ones that work with us at the Tradiepreneur program that come to our events, huge source of their business is word of mouth referrals. And yet most of them have no idea how they're getting them or whether they can do anything about keeping on with getting those referrals. Is it black magic? Is it luck? Or is there something you can actually do to get more word of mouth?
Yeah, no, there's definitely not black magic. There's definitely a strategy in place and a process in place. Now, when I first started in business, I was about 2 years in, and someone invited me to this thing called Be Nice. I'm not here to fly its flag, but what I'm getting to that one is I joined this not knowing what the hell it was. I was in it for 6 years and generated. I mean, we took the business then from doing about 10K recurring to into the sevens, and that all was through referral. And what I learned from that is you can tell a lot by a person through who they refer or how you refer to them and what they do. So there's a lot of people that don't follow up, and that's the worst. And unfortunately, it happened to be a lot of tradies that I referred, so I stopped doing that. But if I refer you someone, like, to me, my list is gold. If I'm referring you someone, they have huge trust in me. And if I refer you, you're pretty much as good as sold, right? Or sometimes I will know your business that well that I can sell you in without you opening your mouth. In fact, sometimes I said, look, I'm going to refer you. Don't say anything. Just rock up. Make sure you rock up, and that's it. So it's really the consistency, showing up, and then following up. So if you refer someone, after the referral, check in with the person you've referred and the person you've referred them to, and say, hey, how was it? What's the feedback? Bring that back to them, have a meeting with them, and just learn about their business. And then when I was there, I was like, hey, if you think we did a great job, we love working with people like you. Do you know anybody else that might benefit from this? And that's how I built it over the 5 years that I was there, but it still stems into what I'm doing today. And I'm in lots of networks and I just love networking. So I'm in a lot of groups, but it all stems that way. And I work out what can I do for that person without anything to come to it from me. So it was like, okay, great. That person might need to know an accountant. I happen to know one. That person might need help with something digital. Great, I'll do it for you for free because you'll think of me later when I need something. And that's just kind of how it built over the time. But it's literally that following up. And there was a few that didn't when I referred, and they're basically dead to me. Like I won't talk to them. If I refer you and you don't show up, that makes me look bad to the person that I referred you to, which means they probably won't refer me to anyone or speak, pleasantries in regards to me or my business because I've referred them someone dodgy.
That's right.
So it kind of didn't work out well. And then there's a circle of influence. So it's like with, if you, like with us, for instance, tradies, lawyers, accountants, tradies, lawyers, accountants work well because they all know, dentists or someone in that sphere. So instead of going directly, you think of, okay, who are they going to before talking to me and who are they going after? And I need to communicate with those people because we have the same people, you just don't know it yet. And you kind of build a circle of influence and a circle of, power people.
Nick, I think one of the fears for, lots of business owners, I won't narrow the field to tradies, is around the small talk that often precedes a good networking opportunity. Do you have some secret questions or secret sauce to meeting somebody for the first time and actually opening up a conversation that's quite meaningful and impactful rather than just the standard, so tell me about your business, or this is what I do, that tit for tat conversation?
Yeah, it used to happen a lot, and I used to hate that. I used to hate that small talk. But I used to say, if there's one person that I can have standing in front of you that will change your business, who would that be? And that, A, you get a lot of blank stares because they haven't thought about it. And B, you can then open it up for them. So you ask, okay, well, if you don't know, then what industry are you in? And then you can just talk to them from there. So you sort of generalize, but you don't. And if you have someone that actually knows that answer, you're going to be talking to them for a long time. So that's what I found worked quite well. It's just getting straight into it and not being afraid to end the conversation. So you go to a networking event, they introduce you, you sit in there with your glass of wine or, beer or whatever, and then you just feel obliged to be talking to this person the whole night, which gets a little bit awkward. So you're like, hey, look, I would love to exchange details. Luckily, LinkedIn now has the QR code that you can just scan. Great, I'll connect with you. We'll go have, we'll meet up next week or something like that. I'm going to go over and talk to this person. Or you might say, hey, come with me. Let's go talk to other people. So not to be afraid to do that, because everyone's there for the same thing. You're not at a pub, you're there to network. So that's what I found worked quite well.
I think BNI is a great basis for learning how to network, particularly for business owners. When I think about tradies, they have a pretty organic route to get where they're going. They haven't necessarily done uni. Many of them don't even actually go to trade school anymore. They do most of the on-the-job learning, so they're not having those opportunities to learn how to network or talk to other people. So there's some fantastic tips to help them along the way. I'm coming in a bit blind. Obviously, I have no idea what the two of you spoke about when I was off yelling.
Talking about your terrible jokes, Nicole.
Throwing things around the house, trying to figure out what was going on. Nick, I'd love to understand some of the mistakes you've made. You referenced that they've now turned into learning opportunities. Some of those ones that you see are happening quite frequently, or maybe some of your favourite mistakes turned into opportunities.
Yeah. My worst mistake was not getting an accountant, a bookkeeper, and a lawyer day one.
Yes.
That was my biggest mistake. And I tell everybody who's thinking about even starting a business or opening up that first page, get a lawyer, accountant, and a bookkeeper day one. Because I thought a credit card's the best thing in the world. Hey, a second credit card's even better. And that didn't work out very well. And then I was like, oh, look at this tool and look at that tool. And I'm a shiny objects kind of guy. So I will look at something and go, yep, definitely need that. 100%. And at the time I had like 2 leads and I thought, you know what, let's get onto Infusionsoft or Confusionsoft these days, which I know a lot of traders probably use. And I'm like, I could have just done with Excel and 4 columns and I would have been fine. So I did that. But that would be my biggest mistake, was not doing that. And we still pay it. And then what I also did was, okay, let's get a bookkeeper. You know what? Philippines is a good place for a bookkeeper. So I went overseas to get one, and he didn't realize that Australia, you have to pay taxes. So my GST money was being paid towards invoices. And then I got the ATO calling me and said, you have a $264,000 ATO bill that you have to pay.
Ouch.
Which is now, almost cleared, which is great, but it's taken me a while. And then you see your friends who are in business and they're doing well and they buying the coolest stuff and going on these holidays, and there you are going, okay, what's my ATO payment this month that I have to do? So all this the profit that you're making is just paying all debts or paying all credit cards or something like that. And that's demoralizing a lot of the time. And people used to say to me in the early days, like, why don't you just leave and go work for someone else? And I said, well, there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, I like determining my own time. And number 2, I'll probably want to own the business. So that's not going to work very well because, I wanted to leave the grind of 9 to 5 to work, midnight to midnight, because everyone loves that.
It's such a positive change, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, I remember making my initial sales meetings on, I don't know if Zoom was around at the time, it was probably Skype or something, where I'm in my room and literally my bed is sitting next to me and I'm, got something behind me and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the office. This is great. My bed's right there. Like I rolled out. Yeah, there wasn't much traffic those days between the bed and the Skype screen. So, it was fine. But yeah, I'd say it was that, not understanding money and realizing that actually the other one is, you can have $1 million business, but if your expenses are 1,000,001, it's not a good business.
Yeah, right.
So
That's
revenue is one of those vanity metrics that when I hear people talking about, oh, what's your turnover? How much revenue you're making? I almost want to just turn around and walk away because that's not the number. If I hear someone talking about profit margins or, EBITDA, I'm just like, yep, you're the person that I needed to talk with because you understand what's important. And that was huge. And
Mm.
determining, time. So if I talk to someone and you're working 5 or 6 days a week, there's something wrong. Like as a business owner, I work, what's today? Wednesday. So I probably work about 3 to 4 days, 3, 4 hours a day, something like that. That's where you get to.
Mhm.
And that's like on the business. So it's working with the teams, working on strategy, a couple of client calls here, there. But it doesn't feel like work after a while. So you could do it all the time. And I used to work all the time until I got married, and then I liked having dinner. So
it's such a good point, Nick. There's a persistent idea, and it's probably just a hangover from the industrialized economy and that whole revolution in inverted commas, because I'm not quite sure it was actually a revolution, but a devolution of if you want more, you just work harder for it. And so particularly amongst our tradies in business, there's a very prevalent idea that I just have to work harder. It's like I'll do more hours, I'll do more time on the tools, or I'll just work Sundays to get my invoicing done. And yet, time and again, Coxie and I talk to entrepreneurs and business owners and thought leaders like yourself that are proving that the opposite is actually true when you figure out what is best done with your time as the business owner. What happened that you made that shift? Like you went from obviously busting your ass. You've already dropped an F-bomb, so I can get a little bit looser on the episode now. We'll just put the sexy E on it and everyone will listen to it. But you've gone from busting your ass, obviously, well, maybe in that same headspace where I just got to do the hours, I got to grind away, to I work 3 days a week and I do 7 figures now, and your profit's probably 6 figures. So what happened?
I suck at numbers. I can't do the numbers. I was just doing the numbers and I'm like, yep, this makes sense. And my brother, he's the chemical engineer, looked at it, he goes, your numbers are wrong, right? And I'm like, ooh, I should probably hire someone that can do these numbers right. But that was the problem. I had to figure this out. I'm like, this is my, net profit and gross profit and all this kind of stuff. And if I increase this here, I'm like, you know what? I'm not good working out those percentages. I'm just really good at talking to people in this funnel. If I have people here that I need to get from a qualification call into discovery sessions, into proposals and close, that's good. If I need to work out how many people I need to get into that, or how many people, in a month need to pay X, Y, or Z, that doesn't work. And it's interesting when you said before about how many tradies don't do that, like they're always doing invoicing stuff. One of my best mates, and I won't name him because he probably might even listen to this podcast, but I've had that many beers with him or ciders where he just says, oh yeah, I'm stuck doing invoicing. And his wife has said, let me do the invoicing, because like you've got all the tools these days and like you could be out getting more work, but you're sitting at home doing all the invoicing and it makes absolutely no sense. So, it's kind of like saying, okay, let the electrician be a plumber too. And it's like, well, no, that doesn't work because it's completely different things. So I'm like, right, an accountant goes to uni to learn how to do all this kind of stuff. A bookkeeper is in the numbers all day long. I'm not going to have my accountant or bookkeeper doing sales because, I'd rather watch paint dry. So it's kind of like, let me do the sales and you guys work this bit out and you just tell me how many sales I have to get, and that's fine. And then with my team, it's like, right, here's our dashboard. You need to make sure that our net promoter score is X. So how happy customers are. You tell me how many projects might be delayed or how many websites we've knocked out or something like that, so I can see everything is tracking in the right way. Then my dashboard is like super simple. It's just got their like revenue, profit, NPS scores, and I think it was like number of tickets or something. And if I can see those are tracking, it's good. If one of them goes red, I know that I'm going to grill my operations manager, who will then grill down the list to whatever needs to happen. But if that's good, then I know that I'm doing a good job on the sales side. And once I did that, it worked well. And I also went into a couple of meetings when my project manager took some time off and I ran those meetings. They said, oh, so when's Charmaine back? I said, well, next week. Why? They go, well, don't take offense to this, but we prefer talking to her than you because she just seems to get things done. I'm like, mate, that's the best thing you could ever say to a business owner, is that you become redundant.
Yeah, go away.
Awesome.
The other person does more than you.
Yeah, and in sales, I say that. It's just kind of like, hey, If you want to work out the best strategy or you want me to sell you something, I'm the guy to talk to. If you want me to do something, I'm the worst guy to talk to, and that's why I've got my team. So
Love it.
yeah, it's worked well.
Now, you do digital marketing for dentists, and we've probably got some listeners who are like, yeah, it's a really cool story. Nicholas sounds like a really cool guy. He's wearing a nice sweater. But what the heck has marketing for dentists got to do with tradies?
Yeah. So just swear one more time, same shit, different smell. So it's marketing. Marketing is marketing. And I said there's just a spin on it, right? So I've got a lot of mates that specialize just in marketing for tradies. And I was telling you about a couple of them, and it's the same thing. So you're running AdWords, you're running SEO, you're running, social campaigns. It's still a marketing, but you just understand the audience. So you get into the mind of it. So with us, with dentists, like we get on calls with dentists and I can basically mime exactly what they're going to say. And I know right down to how much each service is. I can tell you how much it costs to get implants, can tell you how much it costs to get an x-ray, same sort of thing with tradies. I know the guys that do that, they know like the back of their hand. And when you niche down, it's so important because otherwise you just become a generalist and then you're competing on price. But the minute you become an expert in a field, people chase you. So we only work with one per suburb, sometimes expanding to about 8 kilometers, depending on where they are, if it's in the city or regional. But that's worked really well for us because then we become the go-to. And that's why we don't have to do any of our own outbound because people just know about us because you niche down.
So what are some of the secrets? Everyone wants to know the secrets, Nicholas. Maybe there's a better way for me to ask this question. What's some of the simple shit that people should actually be paying attention to with marketing their trade business? There's some key things that most people just miss because they're going for the sexy, shiny butterfly stuff.
Yeah. So this is so the good thing with tradies and dental is it's hyper localized. So the main things are GMB. So your Google My Business listing needs to be 100% accurate with your phone number, your contact details. The other thing is on the website itself, having the contact. What I find with tradies that you do a lot is you put your mobile number. Now, I don't know if you guys have spoken about this on your podcast before or not, but when I see a tradie with a mobile number, you're a sole trader and I don't want to work with you because if something goes wrong, then I probably won't get my money back. So something as simple as going onto virtual HQ or something like that, purchasing a landline number and having to redirect to your mobile is good enough. And getting like a virtual office or something. I mean, yeah, cool. It's just, putting a mask on it, but it's going to make a huge difference, is what we find. And then making sure the website is navigable and you've got, some good imagery on there. It's going to be quite visual, and testimonials and reviews, things like that. And responding to reviews is also highly important. So if someone leaves you a review, don't leave it unattended to for more than 24 hours because Google picks that up. So they look at how many reviews you get, but how quickly you respond to those reviews too is also super important. And then the right pages on your site. So we've built a few tradie sites. We could give you examples of. I'm currently building one now, so we still work with a few outside of that space. But that's what we find with local businesses. People seem to get wrong, and depending on what you use for your booking, I don't know your tools like I do with dental, but like Simpro, I think might be something that you book with or something. Making sure that's linked properly, both on your GMB, your socials, because social you can obviously accept bookings. And making sure the data on there is accurate. So it's just an accuracy of data, which you should really get right from day one, and working with an industry professional in the marketing space, sometimes even a rookie, to be fair, you should just have those details now dialed in. Yeah, it's pretty obvious stuff.
None of those things are hard, and yet I feel like they're really common mistakes that are made, or it's just, I guess, maybe I should rephrase that. They're not difficult to do. It's hard to prioritize them. I think that's where everybody gets stuck. It's another thing to do, but isn't that the key? And you've referenced it so many times. That's where we bring in other people. We don't have to do all the things. That's not close to being your job description as a business owner. You're not meant to do the things. You're meant to have the thoughts. You're meant to give the instruction. You're meant to motivate the team. So it doesn't need to be so challenging because that was quite a list. There's quite a bit that you've just gone through there, but that can all be outsourced. There's plenty of people that can assist with those basic areas. And then I think the most important thing, again, you've referenced it time and time again, is show up and do what you say you're going to do and follow up. Like I actually think that's the 3 keys to marketing. It's the showing up, doing as you say, and following up. That's what gets you the continuation of your marketing. That's what drives your reviews that you need on Google My Business or on your website or on Facebook or wherever they're going to go. That will drive that. That will drive the referral marketing. That will drive your satisfaction from clients. So it just drops into a conversation without it actually being direct referral. It's just something they're excited about. And it all comes from just that consistency. Again, it's another word that you've used quite frequently. That consistency is just, it is simple. It's just simple business. And we allow ourselves to get too busy and too distracted so that we're not focusing on those key areas that we have the most impact on as a business owner.
Yep, 100%. And because I mean, if you think about it, right, you could take it into anything. So yes, as a tradie, you don't know marketing, you don't know your website. Hire a person that knows that. Same as us. I don't know accounting to that degree, so I hire an accountant. We hire a bookkeeper. So marketing guys or just web guys in general should be someone on your books. Like there should just be someone you go into what's known as the care plan, which doesn't cost much. Like I know ours are like 99 a month, or some can go up to about 200 a month. But would you rather pay 200 a month to make sure all that stuff is checked off and you're good, rather than having to do it yourself? Like worst thing you can have is your website to go down and you lose out on some massive sales because you don't even know your website's down. Whereas, we'll know if it's down way before you will, because we have checks in place. We know what to check and how to fix it quickly. And yeah, that's just something, every business owner should have. And it's interesting when I meet some people that don't have a website, and they say, oh no, I don't need a website. Like I've got a LinkedIn profile or something. I'm like, oh, that doesn't help. You have to have the website, even if it's just a one pager with contact details. Like keep it that simple, even with just the contact form. Have it linked to your, to your mobile so that you get it instantly. Just going back on the review side of things, what you can also do there is you have a template that you can send clients or people that you've worked with, and you said, when you write the review, you could almost write it for them and say, hey, do you agree on this review? They might just be like, yeah, no worries, because they don't have time to write it. Like they don't care. You did what you did and they move on. So you could be like, does this sound right? Yes, it does. Great. Put it on there, or send them a link to it. Like there's a super simple link that you can send people and it goes directly on that. Or what it would be great is if you can do sort of video testimonials, and there's a few tools that you can use to gather that. But video goes a long way. And you can transcribe those as well, because then that helps with the SEO side of things too. It might be getting a bit technical, so just focus on getting reviews.
But a lot of that stuff is actually simple, and it's the sort of stuff that you can outsource and delegate. You can't outsource and delegate the electrical work as easily as you can the website or the bookkeeping, and it's where so many trade business owners get stuck. And I was chatting with Coxie about this recently, and also family was here on the weekend, and it's we tradies have this I'll do it attitude more than I've found in the professional services sector and retail and hospitality that I've worked with over the years. And it's a fantastic trade. They're the problem solvers of the world, tradies. But the problem is they try and apply that to all the other business problems, and it's like, I'll do it. I'll do the invoicing. I'll do the social media. And you're not the best person to do that stuff. And you're actually limiting your business. You're limiting the time you get to spend with family, increasing the chaos in your business. We've got a challenge running in May to go from chaos to control because of exactly that. They've just got so many moving parts. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of, I can use it because I'm African, but there's the old African proverb where if you want to go fast, go solo. And if you want to go far, go together, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, you can do all that stuff by yourself. Sure, you'll get it done today. But what about tomorrow? What if you get hit by a bus tomorrow? Will your team know what they're doing? Mm-hmm. And in my business, I always said, it's going to sound quite morbid, but if I was on a flight and the flight went down and crashed and burned, can my team still do what they need to do? Can my clients still continue business as usual and people know how to access everything? So you spend a lot of time on the systems and processes side of things, which sure might seem, mind-numbingly boring, but it's the stuff that will actually make the difference. And that comes back to that consistency that we're talking about so much in this podcast. Is it's there for a reason. And if you're consistent with that, where you do something once, you record it, and then your team can do it from there. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to record it so they know what you're doing. And then it gets to the point where your team will actually do it better than you, because they're the ones now doing it and you don't know how to do it, which is the best place you can be as a business owner, because then you are focusing on the best stuff and you actually become the CEO or the business owner, as opposed to working in your business, because then all you've got is a job, which, stands for just above broke, which to me kind of means that you're not really a business owner. You just seem to like doing things. I'd rather do the right things than just doing stuff because I have to, because I don't take the time to train other people to do it or hire the people to train the people.
Yeah, it's a bit of that working for a living versus working for a life. And so many people are just working for a living, they're just getting by, if that. And so much of it comes from being stuck with all of the stuff in what is, we refer to them as businesses, but in reality, they're just jobs, as you said.
Well, they're grown too quickly.
Our boss is the person in the mirror instead of some other person. So,
yeah, that's it. It grows too. Sometimes it just grows. It grows too quickly for people, and they're not sure who to hire next.
Yep.
So they're like, hey, we're growing heaps. We need to hire, another apprentice. Or I'm trying to put it in the same context, but it's the same with us. Like, who do we hire next? Do we hire the salesperson to deal with all these leads, or do we hire with the person that can deliver the work, or do we hire with someone to better manage how all of this works, which is in operation? And I think that's not something that can be answered very quickly. You kind of have to map out, okay, well, where exactly are we going with this? Like, are we growing, but growing in the right direction and going towards the goals we want to achieve? I remember we turned down quite a large project because it just didn't align with where we were going. Because going back to, what Nicole was saying before, in terms of what are some of the mistakes we made, our biggest deal that we ever made ended up being our most costly from a resources perspective, a stress perspective. And I just really wish I never took that deal on. But at the time I was popping bottles. I was like, yes, this is amazing. And now, I'm just figuring out which scalpel to use on my wrist. And I'm just like, what do we do? Like, there's, and you can't go back on it. So you just finish the job and realize that you're not gonna do that again. So being super consistent in who you're targeting, but being ruthless in that. So if you see money on the table, that's the devil, because it's kind of like, well, it's not, here's the money. Sure, it's easy to take, but you're going to be suffering down the line. So just to make sure you've got your goals set in place and your right target audience.
I feel it goes back to something you said earlier, Nicholas, and that was about the whole, revenue is vanity and profit is sanity, as one of my coaches used to say. And then he'd finish that with, and cash is king. But we get so focused on the job size, and listeners, hopefully you feel a bit squirmy about this, and that I'm speaking directly at you, is getting excited about the size of the job you just won. It's like, oh, we just got this sick job, it's our first $300,000 job, or for a builder, we just got $1 million contract, and that's great, but how much money are you going to make out of that contract? Whether it's $1 million build or a $1,500 drainage job, none of that means anything until you actually know that out of the $1,500 drainage job, you made $1,200 profit, and the guy doing the $1 million build might have lost $15,000. So who's the smartest business owner?
Or someone says you've made that profit, like, but you were doing the work. So there's no profit there because you were doing it, not your team.
Yeah, how many hours did you do, and what should you be charging?
Exactly, because you're probably worth $200 to $300 an hour, and yet you're sitting there doing all the work.
Yeah,
that's right. Nicholas, there's a question that I used to ask our guests all the time, and I've gotten really slack. I think I'm just so enamored with Coxie's jokes that it takes me a whole episode to get over the hilarity of, I can't even remember her joke now, but I do remember my raking it in one because it was such quality. And it's a question I like to ask, which is if you had 1,000 tradies in a room, and this is part of Cox's and my mission, is to help 1,000 tradies and their families get off the tools by 2030 and actually, into what we call true business ownership. So if you had 1,000 tradies in a room, what's one piece of advice or one thing you would like to share with them?
Oh man, that's a very good question. Look, there's so many. I mean, I could go into the marketing sheet, but that's not gonna help a lot of people. I would probably say just to know your numbers, like know your worth and work out where do you want to go. So it's like saying, okay, there might be someone out there that really enjoys being on the tools all the time, which is great, but just know what that's going to cost you. And if you're happy to have that as a cost of business. Because when I realized how much I was costing that, and one of my friends has on his laptop, it goes, is this worth $1,000 an hour? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't be bloody doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can almost have that on wherever when you're on the job and be like, right, is this worth it? Did I get into business for this? And is this the number that I want to have? And if the answer is no, then you need to change something.
I love that.
This is making me all warm and tingly.
I'm a big believer in the quality of our results being linked to the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. And as far as questions go, is that worth $300 an hour or $1,000 an hour or whatever? That is such a cracking question to ask. So love it, Nicholas. Thanks, mate.
Awesome.
Coxie's been a part-time co-host
I've
today
been
with
shocking.
power failures and all sorts of stuff. Nick, did you want to say anything, Coxie?
No, I just really enjoyed the chat, the opportunity, Nicholas. I particularly really enjoy some of that networking stuff we were talking about today. It's another really simple tool that we can use in our business super effectively, and I don't think we're ever taught how to do it. So hearing from someone that does it so well, I think is great insight for many of our tradies to start to think about how they can ask better questions, how they can get in front of the right kind of people to be growing their network. And that's not necessarily about finding lots of work. Sometimes it's just about finding the right kind of like-minded people that can help them with their ideas of growth and change. So thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
You're welcome. That's been my pleasure. This has been great. Hopefully your audience gets some insight from it and help. And obviously I'm always available for a chat. If anyone has any questions, always happy to help. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you guys will give my details out. So happy to help in any way I can. If it makes a difference to someone, then I've done my job.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show, Nicholas.
I'll make it our mission to shout you out for lunch next time we're down your way, which won't be too far away.
Yeah, awesome.
Be our turn.
Sounds good, yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks,
Cafe
Nicholas.
Sydney's just around the corner, so that sounds good.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.